Thursday afternoon. The world watched in disbelief as British politics shattered in real time. What began as a routine policy debate in the House of Commons transformed into a moment that will be remembered for decades. Prime Minister Starmer, calm and composed moments earlier, suddenly found himself at the center of an unstoppable storm. It was 12:04 p.m. The chamber was half empty. Some MPs scrolled through their phones. Journalists checked Twitter. The air seemed mundane, almost lethargic, until Nigel Farage rose from his seat. He didn't move to ask polite questions, nor to seek attention. He moved with a purpose that demanded focus, to expose a leader's weaknesses in front of the entire country. Prime Minister Starmer's statement on government policy was measured, his tone steady. Everything about him screamed routine, predictable governance. Then Farage began speaking, calm, methodical, cold, surgical. Prime Minister, you told this nation you would restore trust. Instead, we've seen confusion, backtracking, and a government overwhelmed by its own agenda. The words hung in the air. Starmer's fingers gripped the dispatch box tighter, a slight flicker crossing his composed smile. MPs paused mid-conversation. Phones went down. The room had shifted and energy crackled. Farage's critique wasn't flamboyant or loud. It was precise. Each accusation landed like a hammer. You promised competence. You promised clarity. You promised leadership. Yet here we are watching your government fold under pressure. Starmer's laugh, brittle and forced, betrayed a flicker of panic. The atmosphere thickened. Then came the line that changed everything. You're not leading. You're clinging. Silence. Absolute crushing silence before the chamber erupted. Gasps whispered astonishment. Stunned MPs leaning back as though witnessing a collision in slow motion. Starmer jolted upright, voice raised, breaking protocol for the first time that day. This is nonsense. Utter nonsense. His composure crumbled under Farage's calm, piercing scrutiny. Each word from Farage felt like a scalpel, exposing flaws Starmer had spent months trying to conceal. The Prime Minister's defense came sharp, reactive, but each syllable betrayed tension. The speaker attempted to regain control. Starmer ignored him, ranting louder, each statement more defensive than the last. I will not sit here and be lectured by a man who has spent decades dividing this country. His outburst reverberated through the chamber, the microphones distorting with his fury. The calm, collected statesman everyone expected was gone. Farage remained composed, unshaken, letting Starmer implode in real time. MPs on both sides watched, riveted. Phones were raised, journalists typed furiously, and the world began witnessing the unraveling of a leader. Live, raw and undeniable, the chamber had transformed. What was meant to be a routine, parliamentary session now felt like the epicenter of a political earthquake. Every eye was on Prime Minister Starmer, whose composure had already begun to crumble under Farage's precise and cold critique. The air itself seemed to weigh heavier, thick with tension, almost pressing down on the MPs. Some froze mid-gesture. Others whispered cautiously to their neighbors, glancing at the speaker for guidance. Even veteran parliamentarians recognized that they were witnessing something unprecedented, a leader unraveling live for the world to see. Starmer, visibly rattled, stepped closer to the dispatch box. His hand gripped the edge, fingers tight, knuckles whitening. He attempted to reassert authority, but his words betrayed his internal panic. You don't speak for Britain! You inflame it! He shouted, his voice louder and sharper than anyone had ever heard from him before. The speaker raised a hand to restore order. But Starmer ignored the warning, barreling forward as though propelled by forces beyond reason. His composure, meticulously curated over months, had evaporated under Farage's unyielding stare. Farage remained utterly calm, a stark contrast to the Prime Minister's fury. His posture was still, his gaze unwavering. He didn't need theatrics. The truth of his words had already hit their mark. The silence between his statements grew thick, almost suffocating, as the weight of accountability hung in the air. MPs instinctively put down phones, leaning forward, trying to take in the full impact. Journalists typed frantically, capturing every nuance, every flicker of expression. Even Starmer's aides looked tense, knowing this was more than a stumble. This was a live, public disintegration. Then came the explosive moment. Starmer slammed his hand on the dispatch box, the sound echoing through the chamber like a gunshot. MPs flinched instinctively. The speaker called for order, demanding Starmer withdraw, but the Prime Minister refused. No, Mr. Speaker, I will not let this man rewrite the truth. His voice cracked, his stance defensive and unyielding. The chamber held its breath. Labour MPs shifted nervously, aware that the optics were catastrophic. The Speaker, realizing the severity, invoked the rarely used Understanding Order 43. 2 security officers entered, slow, deliberate, their presence a visual shockwave through the chamber. Cameras clicked from every angle, capturing Starmer stepping away from the dispatch box, shoulders slumped, drained of authority. Farage, composed and silent, then delivered the line that would echo across Britain. "This is what happens, Prime Minister, when you cannot answer for your failures." The message was simple, devastating, and absolute. Social media erupted immediately. Newsrooms cut live broadcasts to replay the moment. Hashtags trended worldwide, and the narrative solidified in real time. Britain's Prime Minister had lost control, and Farage had seized the moral and political high ground. The nation had witnessed a collapse that would define the coming days, a leader exposed, a government rattled, and a political stage forever altered. Almost immediately, the moment in the House of Commons exploded beyond the chamber walls. Phones buzzed relentlessly in MPs' pockets. Social media platforms erupted, with clips of Starmer's meltdown spreading like wildfire. Within minutes, newsrooms interrupted regular programming to broadcast the footage repeatedly. The hashtags trended worldwide. Sir Starmer meltdown, Farage moment, Yar House of Commons chaos. Journalists dissected every glance, every gesture, every syllable. The narrative was clear. The Prime Minister had lost control. Inside Labour headquarters, panic rippled through the ranks. Advisors huddled in crisis rooms, eyes glued to screens showing the unrelenting replay. Cabinet ministers whispered to each other, frozen in disbelief. Texts flew across secure channels, some urgent, others desperate. "He's finished," one message read. Another simply stated, "We cannot survive." This, the usual calm of number 10, had been replaced by a storm of uncertainty, fear, and recrimination. Meanwhile, Farage's team capitalized immediately. He appeared on multiple news programs, his demeanor composed, almost statesmanlike. He repeated a single line with chilling clarity. "Britain needs calm leadership." Every time he spoke, the images of Starmer being escorted from the Commons flashed behind him. The contrast was devastating. One man losing control, the other unshaken, steady, and clearly in command. Public perception shifted rapidly, polls began moving, and momentum swayed in Farage's favor before Starmer even had a chance to respond. The public response was instantaneous. Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube were flooded with clips. Memes began circulating, some humorous, others scathing, but all reinforcing the same image, Starmer out of control. Across the country, conversations turned to disbelief. Cafes, offices, and homes buzzed with shocked reactions. Many wondered aloud, could a sitting Prime Minister be removed from the Commons like this and still govern effectively? The question wasn't hypothetical. It became a political crisis overnight. Political analysts scrambled to interpret the unfolding chaos. Former MPs and commentators weighed in live, dissecting parliamentary rules, the rarity of Order 43, and the implications for British governance. Headlines screamed across newspapers, Prime Minister humiliated in Commons. Farage seizes the stage, government in freefall. Within hours, polling companies conducted emergency surveys. Early results were grim for Labour. 68% of respondents felt Starmer lost control, and approval ratings began plummeting. Even international attention surged. European diplomats issued statements expressing concern over stability. American news networks ran continuous loops of the footage, analyzing the incident frame by frame. Farage, by contrast, gained momentum unprecedented in his political career. Membership sign-ups for Reform UK surged. Donations flooded in and online traffic broke servers. Britain was not just watching a scandal unfold. It was witnessing a political realignment in real time. Back in number 10, silence persisted. Starmer refused interviews, canceled public appearances, and isolated himself. His aides argued over strategy, but no solution seemed sufficient. The political world had already begun writing the narrative. Labour was in crisis. The Prime Minister had been publicly humiliated, and Farage's star was rising fast. The unfolding media storm was relentless, and the fallout had only just begun. Inside the Labour Party, panic didn't just simmer, it erupted. The meltdown in Parliament triggered a chain reaction that no strategist, no advisor, and certainly no Prime Minister could contain. What began as murmurs among junior MPs quickly escalated into open revolt. Senior ministers exchanged frantic messages, each more desperate than the last. Some pleaded for calm. Others demanded action. But one sentiment echoed through every corridor of power. Starmer must get ahead of this, or the party is finished. Yet Starmer did nothing. For 3 days, he remained silent. No public statement, no apology, no explanation. Every scheduled appearance was cancelled. Every interview request ignored. Downing Street went dark in the middle of the biggest political crisis in modern British history. And in that silence, Farage owned the airwaves. Interview after interview, he appeared calm, measured, almost presidential. His message never changed. Britain needs calm leadership. Simple, sharp, devastating. Meanwhile, Labour MPs watched the polls collapse. Long-time safe seats began slipping. Constituencies that hadn't flirted with Reform UK suddenly shifted. Internal polling leaked to the press painted an even darker picture. Labour support was falling faster than anyone predicted. In northern towns once considered unshakably red, local members reported voters slamming doors, refusing leaflets, or shaking their heads in disbelief. One MP wrote privately, "We can't knock on doors with this man as leader." Another added, "He's hiding from the public." But the crisis wasn't only political, it was constitutional. As commentators debated the Commons' chaos, legal scholars stepped forward with questions no one expected. Could a prime minister who had been forcibly removed from Parliament still legitimately govern? Did the Speaker's authority override the executive in moments of disorder? Had the UK crossed a constitutional boundary it couldn't cross back from? The Supreme Court made an announcement that stunned the country. It would conduct an emergency review of the incident. Never in modern democracy had such a situation reached the highest court. Suddenly the meltdown wasn't just an embarrassment. It was a matter of national stability. 10 days after the chaos, Starmer finally emerged. His face looked drained, his voice thin. He attempted to defend his actions, but the moment had already passed. The public had formed its judgment. His approval ratings were in freefall. The party was in open rebellion, and privately, more than 20 MPs submitted letters of no confidence. The question echoed everywhere. Was this the end of the Prime Minister? As the crisis deepened, the country entered a political twilight zone. Every morning brought new headlines, each more brutal than the last. Leadership in freefall. Government paralyzed. Reform surge continues. But what frightened Labour insiders wasn't the media, it was the mood of the nation. People weren't just angry, they were disappointed. And disappointment in politics is far more lethal than rage. Reform UK capitalized on every second. Their rallies doubled in size. Their online presence exploded. Ordinary citizens, teachers, factory workers, pensioners began repeating the same message. At least Farage is saying something. That simplicity cut through the chaos like a blade. Reform didn't need complicated policy papers or endless briefings. They had momentum, clarity, and a leader who understood the power of timing. Inside Downing Street, however, paralysis ruled. Advisors argued over strategies that would never be implemented. Every proposed speech was rewritten, softened, or abandoned. Starmer's team hoped the scandal would burn itself out. Instead, it became a wildfire. International outlets picked it up. Questions emerged from foreign governments. Even the EU issued a statement expressing concern about stability in the United Kingdom. The final blow came unexpectedly. A leaked audio recording, captured during a private Labour meeting, hit the internet late one night. In it, several senior MPs openly criticized Starmer, calling him a liability, detached and unable to lead through crisis. The clip went viral within hours. By morning, hashtags demanding his resignation were trending in multiple countries. Starmer attempted a final push to regain control. He scheduled a national address, his first major public appearance since the meltdown. Millions tuned in. For a moment, there was hope he might steady the ship. But when he appeared on screen, his tone was defensive, his messaging unfocused. Instead of owning the mistake, he circled around it. Instead of strength, he projected uncertainty. Viewers saw not a leader fighting back, but a man overwhelmed. Within 24 hours, the inevitable happened. A senior cabinet member resigned live on air, stating plainly, "The nation requires leadership. We are no longer receiving." That statement became the political obituary. By the end of the week, Starmer's authority had collapsed. Parliament was preparing for a confidence vote. Reform was soaring. The country stood on the edge of an election nobody expected, driven by a single moment of chaos that spiraled into a national turning point.